Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. A Ukrainian delegation heads to the US for talks on security guarantees and a post-war recovery package. President Zelensky says Kyiv needs up to $800 billion and hopes to sign key documents at Davos. The White House announces a US-led Board of Peace to oversee temporary governance in Gaza as deadly violence continues despite a fragile ceasefire. The board includes Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Tony Blair and Jared Kushner, with President Trump serving as chair. Residents say Iran's deadly crackdown has largely quelled protests as state media reports more arrests. President Trump claims Iran halts planned executions, though Tehran makes no official confirmation. Reza Pahlavi calls on the world to help oust Iran's Islamic Republic and target Revolutionary Guard leaders. Iran's security forces appear to have suppressed the nationwide protests after more than 3,000 deaths. Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara formally recognizes Kurdish language rights and restores citizenship to all Kurdish Syrians. The decree follows deadly Aleppo clashes that killed 23 and displace over 150,000. Uganda's army denies claims that opposition leader Bobi Wine is abducted by military helicopters after the election. His party maintains he is forcibly removed from his home as authorities reject the allegations. Myanmar's military-backed USDP widens its lead after the second round of voting, official figures have shown. The party is set to win 182 of 330 seats as the election enters its final phase amid conflict. The US Justice Department investigates Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey over alleged obstruction of ICE operations. The probe follows the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent, which triggers protests in Minneapolis. Those are the headlines of the hour, and we start in Europe. And a bipartisan US congressional delegation recently visited Greenland and Denmark to express support for those territories amid US President Donald Trump's push to acquire the world's largest island. The delegation met with Danish leaders to emphasize that the American people oppose the idea. Trump had claimed that Greenland is critical for US national security, even suggesting tariffs on countries opposing US interests. Meanwhile, Greenlanders and Danes protested Trump's territorial ambitions with large demonstrations planned across Denmark and Greenland. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney reaffirmed NATO's commitment to collective defence, emphasising that the future of Greenland should be decided by Greenlanders and the Danes. Joining us now is Collins Chong-Yu-Keat. He is a foreign affairs, security and strategy analyst, and he joins us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much for joining us, Collins. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Of course, this saga continues, and Greenland already hosts US military assets on the island, like the Pitofnik space base. What exactly does Washington gain here by owning the territory outright?
Well, as President Trump has repeatedly stated that Greenland is extremely significant for the U.S., for the safety and security of the United States, and how we have seen this is being made clearer by the deeper power presence by Russia and China, and this is pertinent in completing the entire security framework for the U.S. in terms of having this credible deterrent capacity and efficacy, and also, of course, also to complete the entire setup of the Golden Dome project by President Trump. And only by owning the entire island outright can this be secured. It doesn't work by just increasing the military presence by the U.S. And we've seen how it has not been effective in terms of both the volume, the depth, and the efficacy of the forces by Denmark and other European countries, as well as by NATO. They simply do not match with this increased intent and efforts and military presence by both Russia and China, not only in Greenland but also in the Arctic. So by fully owning Greenland will, the future security of the Arctic and hence the security of the European continent also will be secured. And hence we have seen how this is really important, not only for the US, but also for the security of that part of the world. And President Trump is right to simply say that this is not only about the interests of the US alone, but also for the future security of Europe as a whole, and also simply because of the fact that they are ill-equipped to defend Greenland, to defend Europe, without the full support and without the full ownership by the United States.
Collins, of course, though, 85% of Greenlanders say they don't want to become part of the United States. Over 50% of them support independence. Does Greenland not belong to its people? Is it acceptable for the United States to put this kind of pressure on a traditional ally, a NATO ally, in a territory which one day advocates for its own independence?
Well, we have seen how the people of Greenland, of course, we have seen divergent views, but they have also to face the reality that the security of Greenland, the long-term interests of Greenland, lie in the support system provided by the comprehensive mechanism by the United States. And of course, also we have seen how this has been ignored. This has long been not at the forefront of ultimate priorities for Denmark or for NATO before this came up under President Trump. And this has also been ignored under the administration of Biden and Obama. But President Trump is, of course, strategic in seeing how this is important. And we have seen how the importance of the outright control by the US, and of course also this also will not come at the expense of the future interests of the people in Greenland. We have seen how various options have been made available, and of course by securing the long-term stability in Greenland will then we have this kind of new opening for the economic security of the people there, as well as having this credible security umbrella being provided, and to also get the full force of the entire American economic might, of course also the American security umbrella, as well as in uplifting the lives of the people there. They wouldn't have got it so far now in full, in terms of full credibility, in terms of full volume from Denmark, but only the US has both the economic power and the military power to do so, to secure the future of Greenland, not for the years to come, but for decades to come, seeing how the US will maintain its economic primacy, its military primacy, and Greenland is part of that equation.
Okay, Collins, do stay with us as we move on to our next story, when we move over to Latin America. And the US-based rescue team Grey Bull has released a video showing how it helped Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado escape the country in December of 2025. After nearly a year in hiding, Machado was picked up in the Caribbean Sea by Brian Stern and his team, who had been waiting on a separate boat. The 16-hour operation involved navigating rough waters in the middle of the night, and Machado later travelled to Norway to receive her Nobel Peace Prize. In the video, Stern greets Machado and helps her board the rescue vessel. Stern's team, who were funded by anonymous donors, communicated with the US military to inform them of their operation. But it was not officially supported by the US government. Machado has previously declined to comment further, citing safety concerns for those involved. Now we turn to the United States once again, and a Ukrainian delegation is currently en route to the US for crucial talks focused on security guarantees and a post-war recovery package. The delegation aims to clarify the US stance on Russia's response to US-backed diplomatic efforts to end the ongoing war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian team will include key officials such as Zelensky's chief of staff, Korito Bunanov and the head of the parliamentary faction, David Rakamia. In addition to security guarantees, the talks will address Ukraine's urgent need for funding to support post-war recovery. With an estimated $800 billion needed for reconstruction, Ukrainian officials are keen to finalize these agreements with American partners. Ukraine's ambassador to the US has confirmed that these discussions will take place in Miami later today, with the goal of refining key documents that may be signed at Davos. Joining us once again is Collins Chong-Yu-Keat to discuss this further. Of course, security guarantees have been, as well as territory, one of the major flashpoints in the negotiations for peace in this conflict. Of course, the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO was a red line for Moscow. But this, these security guarantees that the Ukraine wants, what exactly does it mean? NATO-style protection, bilateral defense pacts, or something weaker?
That is a point of contention also by all sides. We have seen how Ukraine wanted, a full force security guarantee that can be felt, that can resonate, and also we have seen how sentiments on the ground in Ukraine, almost half of Ukrainians, they strongly oppose Ukraine to pull back from parts of Donetsk, now still held by Kyiv, and but it lies a deeper strategic problem for all sides. Guarantees are easy to make, but it's hard to be made credible. And a guarantee only deters further Russian actions if Russia truly believes that those guarantees are binding in the first place, and that it can survive across these different European political domains, different political cycles under different leaderships in the years to come, and that it actually has this kind of strong hard power military teeth and the ability to enforce that. So of course also different forms might emerge, whether it's NATO-style treaty or bilateral compacts or just a coalition guarantee. And of course, the membership of Ukraine, NATO is out of the picture now. It depends, it remains to be seen as to how and to what form of security guarantees that can be met by Washington, seeing how also Zelensky has tried to have these different fallback options. And as I've stated earlier, Europe is simply, or NATO without the US is simply ill-equipped to provide these security guarantees to Ukraine. And Russia is also, well aware of that capacity, and Zelensky has no other choice but to depend fully, almost entirely, on the backing of Washington in terms of ensuring that these security guarantees, are in line with what Ukraine wanted. But of course, he has to be tied into this, the common framework that is agreeable by all, including by Russia. And the longer Ukraine or Zelensky delay this, Russia will have the pretext and to justify that it was Ukraine that has been stalling the entire process all the time. And President Trump is right to put further pressure on Zelensky now to ensure that it doesn't drag further, and that and these security guarantees can be a main problem if one side continues to see it as the ultimate deciding factor.
And do you think the West is shifting from a victory for Ukraine to a managed settlement stance? And has Ukraine's bargaining power weakened as this war has dragged on?
Well, certainly we have seen how this, has been prolonged, and it's a protracted conflict. We have seen how the leverage has, long dwindled on the side of Ukraine, and of course, President Trump still finds difficulties to find, further solidified, support system or the buy-in from whether from Zelensky or the people of Ukraine. But this is the best time now to push further, and we've seen how, the death tolls on both sides have been astronomical, and this should not happen in the first place. And this is of great hope for this visit to yield, at least, on the part of Ukraine to see the bigger picture, and for President Trump to move forward for this agreement.
Yes, Collins Chong-Yu-Keat, thank you very much for speaking to us. It's always a pleasure to speak to you on the programme. We now move on and over to the Middle East for our next update. And President Donald Trump has unveiled the founding members of the Gaza Board of Peace, which will oversee Gaza's post-war transition. The board includes prominent figures such as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, son-in-law Jared Kushner, and the World Bank President Jay Banga. Trump will chair the board, calling it the greatest and most prestigious board ever assembled. Its role will include managing Gaza's transitional government and creating an international stabilization force to ensure security. US Major General Jasper Jeffers will lead the International Stabilization Force, and this announcement follows the formation of a 15-member Palestinian Technocratic Committee tasked with overseeing Gaza's daily governance. The move is part of Trump's broader peace plan, which began with a ceasefire agreement in October 2025. The plan's second phase aims to bring stability and long-term peace to Gaza. Joining us now is Sol Sadka. He is a political commentator. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sol, before we go into the people on this delegation, of course, moving on to the second phase of the ceasefire. The first phase isn't done yet. There is still a hostage body remaining in Gaza. Aid is still heavily restricted by Israel. It's not freeing slowly into the Gaza Strip like is in the first phase of the deal. 3 Israeli soldiers have been killed. Over 400 Palestinians have been killed. Is this the correct time to announce these members, whoever they may be, to the Board of Peace? Is this the right time to move on to this second phase?
On a personal level, I would think not. But one can see why the Trump administration would be keen to do that, because they want to keep the whole ship rolling. The fundamental reason why the real second stage hasn't started, and this is kind of a bluff, is because there was always never going to be any realistic hope that Hamas were going to hand in their weapons, since they are, after all, absolutely hell-bent on global jihad.
But that's part of the second phase, isn't it? That's part of phase 2. We're talking about the incompletion of phase 1.
Right, well, they were supposed to disarm.
In phase 2?
In phase 2, but that's never going to happen. So the entire thing is kind of a bluff, unfortunately. But it could be that this Board of Peace will be pushing them in that direction, but it seems implausible. The people listed on the board are certainly competent people, right up to Tony Blair and various Jared Kushner and various representatives of Turkey and Gulf states. And who knows, maybe they will be able to persuade Hamas to moderate and hand over some of their weapons, but I am not optimistic.
Let's go through some of these figures now, Sol, who are heading in this Board of Peace, of course, headed by Donald Trump. And then we have UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, of course, led the United Kingdom following the United States into Iraq in 2003, seen as a war criminal by many countries in the region. Palestinians, of course, have expressed wide dismay at that appointment. Along with Jared Kushner, of course, Donald Trump's son-in-law. Of course, sometimes he is seen as an individual who sympathizes with the Israeli cause much more than the Palestinian one. What do you have to say about these appointments, given their past, given some of the informal nature of them? Steve Witkoff, of course, did negotiate a Gaza peace deal, but as we've just discussed, the first phase hasn't been completed yet, very accurately. What do you think about these appointments? 7 out of the 15 we've heard now.
Yeah, some of the people are very serious people. I don't really think it's fair to call Tony Blair a war criminal in any way. And at the same time, there are a number of members. There are some members, I forget the names, there's some Qataris and Turkish people who were instrumental in forcing Qatar to the bargaining table 6 months ago. So they are certainly owed some credit, and it's good that they're on the board. The process of bringing Arabs and Jews together in the Middle East has been one of complete failure over the past 75 years. And that's not for any particular reason beyond the fact that there are a number of Arabs who are increasingly small in number at the higher levels, who are hell-bent on ensuring that there are no Jews in the Middle East. And so the fact that there are people from all walks of life and from all directions on this board, but all of whom reject that kind of genocidal tendency, in my opinion, would give us the best and closest hope to genuine peace breaking out in the Middle East. And if that could be combined with the de-radicalization and the de-poisoning of the textbooks that local Arabs in Gaza and the West Bank are trained on, if that could be done, perhaps in 25 years, this can lead to something really beautiful. But none of this is going to be easy. None of this is going to be quick. As we mentioned, the phase 2 is starting. There's no way that Tony Blair and Jared Kushner and Witkoff and all the rest of them are going to be able to persuade Hamas to hand over their weapons. It's not going to happen. In the end, for actual peace in Gaza, someone is going to have to go in there and actually take away Hamas's weapons. And that's only going to be Israel. And Israel is currently unmotivated. So despite this board of peace and the extremely good people, some of whom are on this board, led by Trump, unfortunately, it doesn't seem optimistic that genuine peace will come between Israel and the population of Gaza, although perhaps that can come at a later stage after peace is brought between Israel and perhaps Syria, perhaps Saudi Arabia, and so on.
Is there a conflict of interest here, though, when it comes to certain individuals on this peace board? Of course, you have President Donald Trump, of course, very, very close relations with the Israeli government. The UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, who had a role in the quartet after office, he served at this Middle East on this Middle East quartet's envoy to the Israel-Palestine issue. But many Arab diplomats saw him as too close to the US and Israel and not a neutral broker. Of course, you've got Marco Rubio, close to the Trump administration, and Jared Kushner's critics say he lacked depth on Palestinian issues and tilted heavily towards Israeli strategic goals. Is a neutral individual player here not crucial to peace in the long term?
In the end, you have to look at this as a battle. What happened on October 7th, 2023 was Yahya Sinwar set up a chain of dominoes that led to the unraveling of the Iranian octopus of proxies that they laid out against Israel. And there's not really much of that left. And as a result of that, the balance of power in the Middle East has shifted. And to the extent that whereas before there was a prospect perhaps of Israelis and the local Arabs negotiating on almost equal terms because the Arabs had so much backing from foreign states and they were trying to increasingly isolate Israel, that has now changed. And so, yes, of course, there's a board of peace is likely to include people who are sympathetic to Israel, although the board also includes people who are certainly sympathetic to the Arab side as well, including some who appear to be sympathetic to Hamas. Of course, that's what happens. These are the consequences of starting stupid wars as Yahya Sinwar and Hamas started, that you essentially have to pay a price. And the price is diplomatic isolation and a reduction in your leverage and bargaining power. This is not surprising. This is what happens after every war across history. If you want to win territory, you try having a war, and if you lose, you pay a price. You pay a price in terms of territory, and you pay a price in terms of leverage on all fronts. And no one has started a more stupid war than Hamas did 2.5 years ago.
Okay. Sol Sadka, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World, and thank you very much for taking the time. We now move on to our next story, and US lawmakers from major pulse-producing states are urging President Donald Trump to intervene in the trade dispute with India over steep import duties on pulse crops. Senators Kevin Cramer of North Dakota and Steve Daines of Montana have written to the president, pressing for favorable provisions in any trade agreement with India to address the 30% import duty on yellow peas. These states are leading US producers of pulses, including peas, while India is the world's largest consumer of these crops. The lawmakers argue that the high tariff is harming American farmers by putting them at a competitive disadvantage. They believe that addressing this trade barrier could benefit US farmers and improve overall trade relations with India, which has become a significant market for pulse crops. The senators are urging the Trump administration to press for the elimination of the tariff to ensure a more level playing field for American pulse producers. Elon Musk has filed a lawsuit seeking up to $134 billion from OpenAI and Microsoft, claiming the companies received wrongful gains from his early contributions to the AI startup. In a federal court filing, Musk said he provided roughly $38 million and about 60% of OpenAI's initial seed funding, helping recruit staff, connecting founders with key contacts, and lending credibility to the project when it was created in 2015. He left OpenAI in 2018 and now runs Grok AI. Elon Musk estimates that OpenAI earned between $60.6 billion and $109.4 billion from his contributions, while Microsoft gained $13.3 billion to $25.1 billion. Elon Musk said he deserves a cut of that, plus possibly even more for damages. OpenAI calls the lawsuit baseless, while Microsoft denies helping OpenAI, like the richest man in the world's claims. Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.